Hello and welcome to my review of the Peugeot e-208. Now after 3 years and 90,000 kilometers, so about 56,000 miles with this car, just to go over my experiences with the car, how it's been, a little drive in the car, and unfortunately in this case we can't go without talking about some of the problems that I've had with the car, and some serious reliability problems which have kind of plagued this particular car, and also a number of early examples of this car do end up having some problems which crop up with the mileage as well. Obviously as an EV it is a high mileage car compared to the average EV. I must also stress the fact that unlike what many people believe, the battery has been absolutely rock solid. It's been more the small auxiliary components which have been the problem. You've had the major parts that have gone wrong in this case. The onboard charger, the OBC, one of the more common issues with this particular model of car. Also, unfortunately, one of the more expensive issues that crops up. In addition to that, we had the AC compressor. The AC compressor ended up going bad as well. That's again a manufacturing defect which does pertain to these early model cars made on cars made up to May 2022. That is a potential issue that does crop up due to manufacturing error on the part of one of Peugeot's suppliers that affects quite a large series of these AC compressors. Now, moving on to the interior, I have to say the interior has aged incredibly well. It was, it's a gorgeous looking car, you've got to admit, and the interior, is no exception. It was one of the more modern interiors of its time, and it's held up very well. Now, starting here at the rear end, at the boot, decently sized boot for the size of car, pretty basic, not really all that big. Got my charging cable here. You've got a double boot floor with some tire repair stuff down there. Not really big enough to fit the cable down there, but you've got a tire repair kit. The sort of basic foam and compressor type kit. No spare tire. Here in the back, as you can see, looks quite nice. The back seats have not been used so much, but nonetheless, tip-top condition, no wear. No untowards wear there. Window winders, windy windows here. This is the active trim, so that does mean the most basic trim, but windy windows work fine. Then here you've got just simple manual mirrors, both sides work fine. Then here, opening the door, you've got just manual adjustments everywhere. No electronic adjustments on the 208, but work fine. Then here you've got the window winders. They also work fine on both sides. Going over to the driver's side. Again, manual adjustments everywhere. Windows work fine, no problem. The mirror adjusters, they work fine. Really, everything in the interior is tip-top. As you can see here, the mileage, 90,620 kilometers. So it's about just over 56,000 miles. But, as far as the interior goes, here you've got the typical small Peugeot steering wheel. Again, aged perfectly well. Can't complain there. The leather's in great condition. It's not really gone shiny yet, even a little bit, but, for the age, top notch. Here, the gear shifter, again, works fine. Even the leather looks reasonably in good condition, no tears or anything. That's nice. Here, the electronic handbrake works fine as well. Drive mode switch, that works as well, just fine. Then all these piano switches here all work fine. The infotainment system and climate controls, they work fine as well, no problems there. Sound system is great, it's working just as it was. It's a focal system in all the Peugeot cars, although it's not advertised as such. But you know, the 6 speakers, you know, the 6 speakers and then the speakers down here, they are bifocal, even though it hasn't got the subwoofer which you could get on the premium sound system with the petrol 208. But unfortunately, because the batteries are stored under the boot floor as well, you haven't got that option here in the e-208, even on the more premium options, on the more premium packages. Yep, so interior, it's worn really well for 90,000 kilometers. We've got, you know, no problems here on the passenger seat, none on the driver's seat either. Then here, center armrest, again, no tearing on the leather there. Side armrest, no problems there. You know, this kind of rubberized materials aged really well as well. Here on the driver's armrest, again, no problems. Even the gloss plastic here is aged relatively well, hasn't got too many scratches or anything. So, you know, here in the interior, nothing, absolutely nothing to complain about. It's been great. The issues have been largely and unfortunately mechanical, not specifically to do with the motor or the battery, but it's kind of minor components, like I said, the AC compressor, the onboard charger, and so on. So that has been really the bane of this car, unfortunately. And then here, you know, again, rubberized materials doing great. Here again, the door side panels doing great. Just one last look here at the driver's side again. Here, I love the cloth seats. They look really great, really comfortable, really supportive. No lumbar adjustment or anything like that, but you know, you've got up and down, back and forth, and then you can tilt the backrest as well. But yeah, like here you see, it's got a tiny bit of wear where the fabric is kind of stretched out and sort of wrinkled up a bit. But you know, for 90,000 kilometers in 3 years, you know, it's really done well for itself. And you know, the reliability just lets down such a wonderful, amazing car, which I would have so gladly kept. You know, the range, it's still good. You know, full charge in summer used to get me about 200 miles, 320 kilometers. Now it's down to about 300 kilometers. So so 300 kilometers, about 170-ish miles from that 320. Originally, that's the 6.5% degradation that I talked about. That's doing that, but then it's never been terribly good in winter. That has always been a bit the downside of this car, unfortunately. And now I'm getting around 200 kilometers, 120 kilometers in winter, down from about 230 or 130 odd miles, 230 kilometers or 130 odd miles back in winter. But that has always been the weak point of this car, and it's been mentioned by reviewers in the past. But again, you know, like I said, that reliability just lets down such an amazing car and such an amazing platform, because that battery is rock solid, but it's just the other little things which really ruin it for this car, you know. And the GT spec cars, you know, they got this wonderful 3D display and a slightly bigger center screen here. Also, you know, one last criticism, if I may say, that this is really a very basic system. It doesn't even have built-in sat nav. It just does, you know, basic climate control and calls via Bluetooth. But you know, you've got wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that's really the only function of this screen, if I'm honest. So you know, some better software would have been great from the get-go, but you know, for 3 years ago and then in this price class, you know, you can't complain too much. But yeah, this is really just such a wonderful car, let down by poor quality components, and I think suppliers which really did not do their utmost to fix those problems when they did come up, because they did persist over a number of years of production. And even some of the problems, like the onboard charger, you know, they persisted after the facelift model, which I find absolutely unacceptable. You know, that should have really been the point where they started to solve that problem. Regarding the new facelift model with the new battery, you know, I do hope that those problems end up being solved. otherwise, you know, it's a very poor showing from Peugeot.
Yeah, as far as sort of the suspension and brakes and everything have been completely fine. The car passed its German technical inspection about 80,000 kilometers earlier this year without any sorts of problems. Suspension was all right. The brakes were fine. Handbrake was fine. The only thing that the car had a little bit of a problem with was it's got a tiny bit of misalignment in the front wheels, which leads to it consuming tyres a bit faster than it really should, but nothing really safety relevant. Yeah, I mean, everything sort of to do with the chassis and to do with the safety of the car is fine. Hasn't got any sort of underbody rust either, so that was really well sealed from the factory. So in that regard, you know, as far as sort of the basic build quality of the car goes, it's been absolutely brilliant. Handles just fine. You know, it's always been one of the best handling small EVs on the market. It's got plenty of power. So as far as the basics of the car's chassis driving, everything's been completely fine. Haven't had any problems with the gearbox. Haven't had any problems with the motor either. So in that way, you know, it's been really good. As far as the battery's concerned as well, you know, everyone is really concerned about the batteries on these cars. But the battery's been great as well. The battery's by CATL, Chinese battery cell manufacturer, one of the best known in the world. It's been absolutely fine. It's got 93.5% of its original capacity, so it's only lost 6.5% over 90,000 kilometers, and that's extremely low. The cars in general, you know, the Peugeot platform doesn't have problem with any kind of problems with battery degradation. This one's particularly low as well. I like to think, because I never really charged it up to 100%. I always made sure that I charged it up to about 80 or 90%, but rarely up to 100, only when I needed it, even though the car doesn't have any sort of battery charge management, so, you know, I had to unplug the car. It's also done a lot of fast charging. I would say at least 100 times in its lifetime it's been fast charged. So DC rapid charging, fast charging doesn't appear to have much effect on battery longevity at all, which is, you know, good to know. But that's kind of the standard of what we know about electric cars at the moment. That fast charging doesn't really do too much damage as long as you're not charging up to 100% on the DC chargers. Yeah, but unfortunately the car has had quite a lot of problems, and you know, not really to do with any sort of major drivetrain components. The battery, the motor, the transmission's all been great. And yeah, we're just going on now to a bit of a curvy stretch here in Luxembourg, funnily enough, and we'll just give it some beans. Got some winter tires on here. Just see how the suspension and brakes and everything are holding up. Just listen to these amazing motor noises coming off the car. I mean, that's something I've always liked about the Peugeot e-208. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not a muted EV. It does make some sort of nice electrical noises that let you know that something is whirring away under the bonnet. That's something I find, you know, too many EVs try to sort of stifle the natural noises. This car just, I mean, it just whines and it makes these kind of amazing motor noises, I find. You've got some decent brakes, you've got absolutely precise, immensely good feeling steering here. You've got this little steering wheel, very sporty. You've got decent acceleration, you've got absolutely brilliant body control on this car, and even after 90,000 kilometers, you know, you haven't got any sort of suspension problems whatsoever. It's really just a joy to drive. And yeah, I mean, we've got the OBC issue now. Can't charge the car on AC. Got to charge it on DC only until that new part comes. And it really pains me because Peugeot puts so much effort into improving their image, right? This car doesn't rust. It drives great. You they've really, and it passed the German inspection, one of the most difficult in the world. For a first time, no problem. So you've got no safety relevant issues, suspension's good, handles well. I mean, they put so much effort into making this car good, and it's just let down by just the poor quality parts which they chose for this car, and just poor supplier. And it's just such a shame, because I would like to recommend this car, and it is such a great car to drive. And especially in the UK, you've got some really good deals on these cars. Sort of you've got even the GT spec cars with that lovely digital display and nicer seats and nicer rims, better handling, and so on. You've got those cars now coming on the market for £14,000 low mileage, but it's so hard to recommend this car because it's got problems. I mean, it really has. The platform has known problems, and you've got to think, okay, well, I'm going to buy this car for £14,000 and potentially going to put a lot of money into it fixing it if it's out of warranty, and that's just the shame of it. I can't really recommend this car in good faith. I mean, and the thing is, if you are looking at this car and you think it's a great deal, well, I've really got to recommend you get the extended warranty, because fingers crossed you're not going to have problems, but if you do, that warranty, it's going to pay dividends. I mean, it's really worth it, rather than risking your wallet on this car. And it's kind of, okay, well, you've got to think, I'm going to buy this Peugeot 208, brilliant handling car, and relatively cheap compared to other alternatives, but you've got to keep those problems in mind. And it's kind of, okay, well, you're going to have this car now, only 2 years warranty in the EU, 50,000 kilometers, and 3 years, 60,000 miles or 100,000 kilometers in the UK. And you've just got to think, okay, well, I'm saving the money on the car, but wouldn't it be better in a way to go for a car like a Hyundai Kona or an Ioniq 38 kilowatt 2nd gen, or a Kia e-Soul or something like that, which actually in practice get about the same range as this, especially in the winter, because this car gets about 200 miles in the summer and closer to kind of 120, 130 in the winter on the motorway, and even at conservative speeds, to be honest. And it's just something you've got to keep in mind. I'm going to be saving money on the car, but am I going to get bitten with the repair costs, or would I rather just spend a hair more money on a car with a decent warranty, and then just have that peace of mind for 5 years in the case of Hyundai, or later models at 8, got an extended 8-year warranty, or with a Kia, a 7-year warranty. Yeah, I mean that's really the question you've got to ask yourself. And yeah, so I quite like this car still to drive. It's a brilliant car to drive, but sort of coming on to the problems that we've had with this car, and unfortunately I'm really sorry. As much as I love this car, I love driving it, unfortunately I have got to mention. So it started out actually very early on, about 20,000 kilometers. We started with the first problem, and that was the brake pedal micro switch, which interfaces with the automatic emergency braking AEB system. And that micro switch serves to tell the car's AEB system that the driver has manually applied the brakes, and to override that system. And when that micro switch failed, the entire AEB system ceased to function. Luckily, it was a rather simple fix, about 1.5 weeks in the garage, covered under warranty. So I can forgive that. Early problem, didn't come back afterwards, so completely fixed by that micro switch replacement. So I can live with that. Then following that, about 32,000 kilometers, we ended up having the OBC, the onboard charger, which is the unit which allows you to charge at home on a wall box. That ended up failing. 2021, height of the corona pandemic, took about 5 months to arrive, and well, thank God we had thankfully we had a replacement car complimentary under the warranty. Otherwise you would have been out of a car for 5 months. Anyway, that was covered under warranty. You can forgive that. Corona. Peugeot is not responsible for the corona pandemic, so fair enough. Following that, at 37,000 kilometers, we had another failure, which was the high voltage DC cable, which runs from the charging port to the battery for rapid charging, DC charging, and that ended up having an isolation fault. Part of the insulation around the cable had worn off, and water had gotten in there, and of course, that triggered all the safety mechanisms on the sort of CCS chargers we tried to use. Again, about 1 week fix, covered under warranty. I can forgive that. Never occurred again. Thankfully. Then moving on from there, about 52,000 kilometers, we ended up having the AC compressor fail. Again, just like the OBC, very common problem with these cars, especially the early models, it was caused by manufacturing defects, very common manufacturing defect from Peugeot's supplier, and potentially could affect cars produced until May 2022. So that ended up being a really annoying one as well, because it took 2 months to arrive, again outside of the EU 2-year warranty, 2-year unlimited warranty actually, as opposed to the UK, which has the 3-year 60,000 mile or 100,000 kilometer warranty. Yeah, that ended up being a 2-month wait, and the AC compressor AC system is pretty fundamental to the functioning of the battery cooling system, unfortunately, and that did lead to the battery overheating a number of times while rapid charging, and that came up with a big traction fault warning here on the driver's display. And also, when the battery overheated, it did limit the power that the motor had to drive. It ended up resulting in a power limit until the battery cooled down again. So, very annoying, system relevant component, and that took 2 months to arrive. Again, not covered under the EU warranty, which it's just the basic legally mandated warranty which they have to give. Luckily, it did end up being covered by Peugeot's goodwill, so they ended up covering that. 90% of the costs were covered by Peugeot, which of course I'm incredibly thankful for. Otherwise it would have cost about 1,700 euros with labour. Then moving on to the next problem, because where does it end with this car? Unfortunately, the next problem ended up being the fact that the car wouldn't charge on a rapid charger on CCS. It just wouldn't handshake whatsoever. That ended up being a software problem. Needed the whole software to be rewritten. Labour costs around 200 euros, which we had to pay out of pocket, unfortunately. So that definitely, that didn't really impress me, didn't really improve my view of the car. And then again, we had another problem. Now at about 80,000 kilometers, just over 80,000 kilometers, we ended up having the OBC fail again, the second OBC, which is just unacceptable. It's just such a common failure with these cars. And then of course my dealer said, well, Peugeot has improved the OBC, so we're getting a new OBC unit, but it's kind of, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see that it's more reliable. We've had so many promises now of the car being fixed, and it just never ends, to be honest, with this car. But then to come to my conclusion on the car, and I must really stress that this does only apply to the late 2019 to sort of 2021, early 2021 models, which is what this car is. I can't really comment too much about the new facelift models that did get some differences. You know, they've got a slightly different gearbox and got a bit more range and got a slightly improved heat pump and so on. But really with these early models, and also not to talk of the brand new model with a new battery and a new motor and so on. You know, I can't say anything about the reliability, and I certainly hope for the people that do end up buying those cars that they did fix something there, and that the platform is, you know, what it deserves to be. You know, it's a fun car to drive. It's just let down by many reliability issues. But personally, my opinion with this car is, you know, if you're looking at one now used, and it does look like this amazing used deal in the UK, especially, you know, you're looking at high spec models for about £15,000 with low mileage. You know, I really have to stress, you know, keep these issues in mind, you know, that can crop up. I'm not by any means saying that they will, or that, you know, every one of these cars is unreliable or so on, but you know, these are issues which have cropped up multiple times, and in my case, and of course in various forums and groups, you know, you can see that these issues are not isolated, that they are unfortunately somewhat systemic to these cars. You know, and I have to say, you know, if you're looking at one of these used, it's kind of just a situation that, you know, I've got to think, you know, I've got to protect myself. You know, I've got to make sure that it's not going to become a financial trap. You know, and that's why I say, if you're looking at one of these cars and it can be a good deal, and you really are set on it, and you know, it's a gorgeous car and it drives well, I've just got to say, okay, you know, if you can and you've still got the chance, invest in that extended warranty, because, you know, for the price of, I think it's the more basic warranties, they cost about a few £100 and goes up to about £1,000 plus for the really extended one. I've got to say, just get the longest one. You know, as long as you want to keep the car, make sure you've got that warranty, because, you know, the repairs on these EVs, you know, I'm not saying that they're necessarily less reliable than ICE cars, you know, but, you know, the repairs on EVs, they can be expensive, even for mundane things like the AC compressor, like the onboard charger and so on. You're looking at about €1,700 with labour for the AC compressor, about €3,600 with labour for the OBC. And like I mentioned, you know, the warranty in the EU is 2 years with no kilometre limit, in the UK 3 years and 60,000 miles and 100,000 kilometres. So, you know, these warranties aren't the longest in the industry, and you've just got to think, okay, well, how can I protect myself? You know, of course, the battery, you know, I mentioned the battery. The battery has been absolutely rock solid. I mean, no problems with batteries. You know, that's what people are worried about, because of this unbelievable cost of replacing them. But honestly, in my case, you know, as far as the degradation goes, I've only got about 6.5% degradation now in 90,500 kilometers, about 56,000 miles. So if I'm honest, you know, it's not something I'm really worried about. You know, and this car has been fast charged a lot in its lifetime. I mean, the only one caveat is it hasn't been charged much to 100%, which I consider to be probably the bigger sin, rather than rapid charging them to a reasonable level. I obviously don't do that to 100% or 90-95%, but, you know, I think, you know, it has been fast charged about 100 times in its life. So you know, not a conservative number for this mileage, and I think it hasn't really had too much effect on the battery, as it's shown. Yeah, so for me, I really wanted to like the car, and it's it's a car which handles great, but you know, the issues have sort of changed my opinion on the car, and really I want to be rid of it as soon as possible, if I'm honest, even though it's brilliant to drive. So yeah, that's really my conclusion on these last 3 years with the car, and it's really, despite it being a very nice car to drive, and I think, you know, one of the best looking EVs in its class, and one of the best handling EVs in its class, and, you know, generally, other than the reliability, one of the best EVs you can get. But, you know, my experience has been overwhelmingly negative, and that also reflects on my opinion of the car, and also, you know, I don't want to discourage buyers overly. You know, obviously do your research and take the precautions necessary to protect your wallet, but You know, I don't want to discourage people overly. It can be a good car, but you know, I think, you know, you've just got to weigh those options and obviously protect yourself. And if you are someone who's going to outrun even the extended warranty, or you know, reliability and downtime is a big concern, then maybe think about some of the more reliable counterparts and potentially also better warranty counterparts, like the Hyundai Kona or the Ioniq 38 kilowatt, you know, the second generation Hyundai Ioniq, or the Kia e-Soul, because I think, you know, they're definitely not bad choices either.